Of our normal silly opening, Social Geekery wants to take a moment and recognize the movement spreading across the country in the wake of the George Floyd murder. While we strive to leave politics out of our frivolity, the need for justice and equality transcends politics. The geek realm, science fiction, fantasy, movies, cartoons, comic books, toys, video games, is not free of insensitivity or even outright racism, but at its best seeks to do better, to change the narrative, to give a voice to those who have traditionally been silenced and imagine a world where justice and equality that, if not quite present, are ideals that are achievable. To those out protesting and seeking justice, equality, freedom, and reform of, well, American society itself, we at Social Geekery want to say, we see you, we hear you, we stand with you, we learn from you. Black Lives Matter. To quote the doctor, what makes you so sure life is worth more than those people out there on the ice? Is it the money? The accident of birth that puts you inside the big fancy house? Human progress isn't measured by industry. It's measured by the value you place on a life, an unimportant life, a life without privilege. The boy who died on the river, that boy's value is your value. That's what defines an age. That's what defines a species. Now we're going to talk about things that ultimately don't matter, things that are small in comparison to the big things that need talking about. But in talking about these small things, hopefully we can give a bit of respite, a bit of shelter in the storm for some of you. And maybe, just maybe, if we can share commonality in liking these small, inconsequential things, we can realize that despite our outward appearances, we're all just a bit geeky at heart. With that said, join us for the new adventures of Moderately Geeky. This is Social Geekery. Now, here's your host, the man who loves his small, inconsequential things more than anyone else, Jay Hunger.
I'm nothing if not small and inconsequential. All right, guys. So we're going to have some fun today. We posted a survey out a couple weeks ago trying to get feedback on your favorite cartoons growing up. So we are definitely going from something very, very serious to something very, very fun and, like Travis said, inconsequential. So for the few people that are still watching us, this may sever that link right now because we'll probably piss you off. What we're going to do is we're going to run like a March Madness in June because time doesn't matter right now. It's all blur. So we are going to run like a March Madness of what is it?
64.
What? I'm sorry?
64.
64. Okay. So 64 cartoons that we kind of got a survey on from you, the listeners. So you're partially to blame too.
Did it really get to 64?
Travis was good enough to get these guys into brackets, kind of put them into classifications to get some kind of order so that we can kind of do this little playoff kind of thing. Before we do that, let's introduce Jason.
Good evening, good morning, good night, whenever you're listening to this.
We have Travis, who introduced us.
Howdy, guys.
All right, now remember, he's the one to blame in all of this, all right? And I'm Jay. So, like I said, we're going to take a look at, we're going to start off with 8 matchups of some cartoons here, and we definitely want your input. We want your thoughts about this, because we're going to give our thoughts, and whether you agree with it, whether you don't, let us know, because we're curious. And like I said, this is all for fun. This is kind of how we see it. And I guess luckily we have 3 of us tonight. So if 2 of us agree, I'm sure one of us will not. So that's basically how we do it. For what? How many years has it been, guys? There's always been one that goes against us.
I started with you guys back in 2006, if we want to start counting that far back.
Right. I think we started recording in 11.
So let's hand it off to Travis. And if you would, Travis, talk about, before we really get into it, talk about the brackets and kind of what you decided, what you thought about when you were making these divisions up.
Yeah, so what we did is we did an informal survey of people kind of in our social groups. And so it's primarily going to be us Gen X, early millennial type guys that grew up with our formative years in the late 70s to early 90s. So these cartoons are going to vastly focus on that area. And we try to leave it as open-ended when we ask the question. Basically, we ask, what's your favorite cartoons? And we wanted different takes on it because some people immediately ask, what do you mean by favorite or best or greatest? That's hard to judge something that's, say, comedy-driven versus something that's action-oriented, something that's adult versus something that's maybe preschool. So there's a wide variety, but we just wanted to get a broad spectrum of the cartoons people like. So we compiled the list. We had people rank them in order from 1 through 20. We asked for everyone to give us 20. And out of that 20, we got north of, say, 85 real contenders. And so what we did was assign point values based on where they ranked them. So if someone ranked the number 1 cartoon, got 20 points all the way down to their 20th cartoon, which was worth 1 point. And then we tabulated those to kind of get us a point value. And then we broke them up into 4 different categories. And so what we have is the category we're going to talk about today that we're calling the after school category, which is largely kid-oriented, humor-based cartoons. And then the next bracket we'll go to is the toy-mercial, which is basically cartoons that were made primarily to promote a toy line. Then we have what we've termed the prime time, which is actually a little bit of a catch-all, but it's primarily focused on more teen to adult cartoons that generally premiered during the prime time hours, late afternoon to evening to even nighttime. And then our final category is what we're calling the 30-minute action hour or the half-hour action hour. And these are the cartoons that are just action-based, not necessarily toy-based, although they may have had toys that went with them. But this is where you'll find your superhero and Star Wars and those type of lines are in there. Now, we had to try to decide where to stick some of these based on they could fit in multiple categories. And so we tried to split up as best we could evenly between the 4. With our demographic, obviously the action hour and the toy-mercial, they generally had the highest amount of votes, so we wanted them on opposite end of the bracket. So each one of those categories has 16 cartoons ranked from 1 through 16, and we're going to do it normal March Madness bracket style. So the top seed will go against the 16th seed, second versus 15, and so on and so forth. And we're kind of playing it by ear. We're going to see how it goes. We decided when we were looking at, all right, we asked a general question, but how do we, as the people to be on here, and it'll probably be the 3 of us along with guests over the next few weeks, discussing on how do we rank these, how do we discuss how one cartoon is better than others. So we decided basically we're going to have 4 criteria we're looking at. That's 8 or 10, so 4. And the first is quality, and that could be in terms of animation, the voice acting, the writing. Is it a good cartoon versus a maybe not so quality cartoon? But once again, even there, you're comparing styles. The second criteria we're looking at is longevity or rewatchability. Do those cartoons hold up today the way they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and in some cases 50 or 60 years ago? The third one is influence. Did they influence something? Maybe not necessarily cartoons, but for example, and we'll talk about in coming weeks, Batman the Animated Series. Its influence is tremendous on the comic books and even movies by giving us Harlequin and redefining a number of the Batman villains for a new generation, if you will. And the final kind of qualifier that we're making is, do you enjoy it? How fun is it? What's the impact it had on you? Some cartoons, for example, I've watched and they leave no impression versus other ones. Man, they stuck with me for more than 20 years. So it's highly subjective, but that's kind of the point. We wanted it to be very subjective. We wanted to create discussion and conversation. So if you agree with us, great. But especially if you disagree with us, throw it in the comments. Get into a discussion with other people. We're just out to have some fun more than anything. So with all that in mind, let's begin our cartoon kumite with our first category, the after-school cartoon bracket. And our first matchup will be the top seed, the classic DuckTales cartoon from 1990 versus the seminal and basically the one that started it all, Flintstones, which comes in as our 16 seed in this category, which Seems awful low, but there it is. We have the juggernaut of Gen Xers' youth in DuckTales 1990 versus Flintstones from 1960. And if you guys want to feel really old sitting here talking about this in 2020, DuckTales premiered 30 years ago in 1990. When that first came out, so talking about it today to back then in 1990, the Flintstones came out 30 years before DuckTales originally aired. So us talking about DuckTales now is the same as us talking about the Flintstones back in 1990.
Yeah. What's
That's
crazy
rough.
about Flintstones is I think it was still on Saturday mornings at that time 30 years
Yep.
ago.
Yep. So, well,
And
here we go.
honestly, though,
Go ahead.
well, so this is what we have in store here. I mean, these are not simple picks. I mean, this is a very
No.
complicated pick. And I mean, it's really going with a juggernaut that is the Flintstones coming in at 16. And this is probably a sign of our age more than anything, and the people
Yes.
that, chimed in on this, versus DuckTales, which is one of the stronger Disney hour cartoons by far.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's really hard. I watched Flintstones when I was younger. Some of the things stuck. But with DuckTales, man, I was just at the prime age for that, dude. I loved the characters. I loved everything about it. I was hooked. I was drawn to DuckTales every time it was on. It was one of those things. If I missed it, there was something pretty big happening. You know what I mean? So, but as for the Flintstones, that was nostalgia for me because I was watching it when I was really young, and it was one of those things that, like another on this list that we'll find out later, Rocky and Bullwinkle. It's just one of those things that was my youth when I was really young. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and even then, it was in such syndication that it was running normal, watching hours for a kid, either in the mornings or in the afternoons or Saturday mornings even. So, I mean, the Flintstones is no joke by any stretch of the imagination in terms of cartoons.
Absolutely.
I love DuckTales so much. This is a personal opinion of mine. I don't think either of those really dealt with anything too serious. I do like that the DuckTales did have some story arcs where it wasn't just a one shot here, one shot there, which is basically what the Flintstones were. There was some slight carryover of instances or like the alien or the time traveler. Do you remember what his name was?
Yeah, Greg Gazoo.
Yeah. So, but I don't really feel like there was an overarching story, whereas DuckTales I really did. You know what I mean?
Jason, what do you think?
Oops, sorry, I got Charlie horse.
That's a different cartoon.
One of the choices.
I was scrubbed in surgery most of the morning, so I just stood there for like about 5 hours, not moving. Sorry. Anyway, Flintstones. I feel about Flintstones like I felt about watching Peter Pan last night. I think it suffers from the era that it was in and the insensitivities that are apparent today that back then when you watched it were there, but nobody really realized it because it was a product of its time. That said, it is like, the granddaddy of, your Saturday morning breakfast cereal cartoons. But DuckTales, it was always an adventure. There happened to be story arcs, it was something introduced, by that time where these cartoons had a theme played out over multiple episodes. So it kind of laid the groundwork there for cartoons today where you have an overarching theme continuing on and on. And now you have a newer DuckTales, which kind of picks up where that left off. So, I mean, here, DuckTales.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I have a lot of nostalgia with Flintstones as my dad kind of introduced me to them. I mean, that was a cartoon he grew up with. It's something that I watched with him on occasion. And But DuckTales was a seminal cartoon. I mean, it started that whole Disney afternoon block. It was if I can put it in any terms, DuckTales was a cartoon I quit watching G.I. Joe to watch, because G.I. Joe was huge to me, and then DuckTales came out, and it's like, I like DuckTales a little better. It's funny, it's got adventure, and it was weird because I was probably, 90, that'd be upper elementary school, like 4th or 5th grade when that came out.
12, 13.
Yeah, in there, and so it was
preteen.
Yeah, it was that was a big deal, switching over to that from the toy commercial type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'd go with DuckTales. So are we fairly convinced, even though it's going to knock out basically the OG of the cartoon world?
Right.
Plus they had a kicking video game.
The DuckTales video game was great.
So, and I actually put this out to a couple of our Facebook groups, and I think across the board, everybody was like Flintstones over the original DuckTales, which I was kind of surprised given the age of these guys.
Yeah.
And
I think in terms of importance, you can't. I'm not sure there's a cartoon more important than the Flintstones. I mean, it invented the serial cartoon. It brought a lot of the things that became standard. It basically founded the Hanna-Barbera cartoon division, which basically ruled until the late 80s and 90s. It was the gold standard, but man.
Was Tom and Jerry Hanna-Barbera? I can't remember.
No. Were they Fleischer? Yeah, they weren't Hanna-Barbera, at least at the time when they came out.
Okay.
But I'm not. I can't remember 100% where they were. But at any rate, okay, we'll move on. We'll call DuckTales the winner on that one, just because we're all nerds.
And on all of these, we definitely want your guys' input. Where you think we're wrong, where we are actually wrong, and your personal thoughts on these, because it's more engaging, and it's nice to hear from you guys on what you guys think and all this as well.
Yeah. Well, let's go to our second matchup of the bracket here, and that's the number 2 seed Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? That's the original late 60s, early 70s Scooby-Doo cartoon versus DuckTales, our number 15 seed, which is the modern version, the one that just came out a couple years ago, featuring David Tennant as Scrooge McDuck. All right, Jason, let's start with you this time. What's your opinions on Scooby-Doo versus modern DuckTales?
Scooby-Doo. I don't remember, but my mom telling me up until I guess I was 4 or 5, that was like my cartoon I watched all the time. But it's kind of always been around, and we even talk about it at work. We have a doctor, we call him Scooby-Doo sometimes. He likes to listen to the theme song during surgery. To me, it's still around my life, whether I like it or not. I tried to sit down and watch the new DuckTales cartoon. I don't know if it's just my age, whatever. I couldn't get into it. So, Scooby-Doo.
Jay?
I like the new, the modern DuckTales cartoon. It took a bit for me to kind of get into the story and get into the world. That's changed a little bit from what we knew, just thinking about, the original DuckTales. And the fact that they had David Tennant doing the voice of Scrooge McDuck is freaking mind-blowing, and it's a lot of fun. I do like the characters, and they are really heavy with the nods of all their other cartoon series that they've done. They have the Darkwing Duck. They've had Rescue Rangers inside these cartoons, and they're I don't know if they're accidentally building a universe that they can expound on, and if they do, I think that'll make the new DuckTales bump up a little bit higher. But I really have to go with the original Scooby-Doo. I loved watching Scooby-Doo when I was a kid, and when they had guest stars or guest appearances from everybody from the Harlem Globetrotters to like Batman and Robin to Wonder Woman. They had
didn't they have the sheriff from
Raja Gabor, and just random
Phyllis
Price. It was so fun to see all these guys, and this is where I actually met Batman, was through Scooby-Doo.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know,
Wasn't Blue
I
Falcon on there
really-
too?
What's that?
Didn't Blue Falcon make an appearance too at one point, or was it just Batman?
Yeah, a lot of the guest stars were later. They weren't part of that original
Right.
Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?
Yeah.
Run. They came more in the 70s, later in the 70s, early 80s. But yeah, that was such a fun show, the old school Scooby-Doo. And whereas a lot of people have Flintstones, is that, for me personally, Scooby-Doo is my original cartoon. That's the one that hooked me as a kid. You know, I had Sesame Street and Electric Company and Scooby-Doo. That was my TV family, and everything from the theme song to that just janky animation. Now, that said, the modern DuckTales is a great cartoon, and if I looked at all the other things that we're talking about judging these people, the quality of it, the animation is great, the voice acting is great, the writing is superb. It is a fantastic cartoon, and honestly, it's better as far as production is concerned, I think, than the original DuckTales cartoon. But that nostalgia factor kicks in. I love the original DuckTales more than I do the modern DuckTales, just because of where it sits in my heart.
So, Travis, before you go any further, do you think it having an original series actually hurts the modern DuckTales more?
Possibly.
I don't think it would be nearly as successful if it wasn't for the original series.
Okay.
And the reason I say that, I think there is a lot of nostalgia for guys our age, even as good of a show as it is. I'm not sure we would have given it a chance if we didn't have the original one that was tugging at us. But that said, one of the things I really like about the modern DuckTales is how much they go back to the old classic comics.
Right.
There is plenty of the cartoon nods in there, but it goes way back more to the old comic strips and comic books and graphic novels of Scrooge McDuck, which is really fun, I think. And I think it's a great cartoon. I'm surprised it came in at 15. I would have pegged it probably middle of the pack in the after-school bracket, honestly. And but that said, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? I can't knock that one off for this. So
Right.
I got Scooby-Doo too. So I think we're agreed. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to our next matchup. Is the number 3 seed, which is another Scooby-Doo, but it's the more modern Scooby-Doo Mystery Inc. versus, and this is one I can't believe is this low, number 14, Animaniacs. Jay, you've got the shirt on. Where do you go on this one?
I've got to flip though. I've got to go with Mystery Incorporated, man. That is a magnificent, wonderful, endearing, intelligent cartoon that hits what the Scooby-Doo series have always been, makes it modern. The writing is just wonderful. Everything is like tongue-in-cheek, and it's just a wonderful cartoon. Animaniacs was basically a blitz of chaos and fun and off-the-wall goofiness. And, you know, it being up another cartoon, I mean, it'd probably win, but Mystery Incorporated is such a fantastic show. Just a fantastic show.
Jason, what do you think?
I haven't seen Mystery Incorporated, so I'm going to have to go with the Animaniacs just because I can't properly judge that. Plus the characters. If you've seen the show, you know they're quite memorable.
Yeah. Jay, I'm about to break your heart here, buddy.
No way!
I got to go Animaniacs, man.
Wow.
Mystery Inc., it's good. It's
I
not
still
great.
quote Animaniacs. Let's just go there.
Yeah, I mean, you go, Yakko, Wacko, and Dot. You go the Pigeons. You go Buttons and Mindy. You go Pinky and the Brain. Good idea, bad idea. That cartoon just hit every single one of my Happy Buttons, the songs. Oh, I don't think I can do it from memory anymore, but I used to be able to do the state capitol song and the Great Big Universe, and we're all real puny. A little bit of spec like Mickey Rooney type thing. Animaniacs was so good. This is going to be our first upset, guys. 14
That's
seed.
horrible. Mr. Inc. should have won this bracket easily. And I love DuckTales.
Nah, I'm sorry, man. But that said, Mystery Inc. got a lot of mentions. I mean, it was up there. Animaniacs.
It's good.
Animaniacs had fewer mentions, but was on higher up on a number of lists, but not as many. And it's probably an age thing. And, I think with Mystery Inc., I think a lot of it depends if your kids are kind of in that realm right now, because that was probably, 2012-ish? Is that 6 years old now, Mystery Inc.?
It's 2020 now, man.
Yeah, I know. Oh, that's true. So 7, 8 years old now. I'm not sure how long ago that came out. I remember watching it when my oldest was very, very young, and he was kind of like, it's okay. And to me, I compare it to the classic, and the classic Scooby-Doo is where it's at, man.
Oh, man, I don't know. Send your hate mail to Travis because he's wrong on this one. So,
all right.
Before we go to the next one,
yeah.
Do you guys remember it wasn't an offshoot so much as very in that style, but there was a show called Hysteria.
Yes,
that was
I remember that. Yep,
love that show.
It was great. It was in that same vein.
Yeah,
but
yeah, Tiny Toon Adventures too, which was kind of in the same.
Yep, that was the first one of those Warner Brother trying to, I think, replicate a little bit of that Disney afternoon type feel.
It was their attempt to compete against it.
Yeah, the CW channel. What was that called before it was CW? Was it the WB? Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it was actually something before that, but I don't remember what it was.
And through all the mergers and stuff, it became CW over the years. But they tried that, and you remember the weird like space superhero Looney Tunes cartoon?
Nope.
No, I don't remember that one.
They had some weird ones back then, but
Warner Brothers was really hitting a stride at that point in time, and they were getting really aggressive with the licensing. That's when Six Flags parks really started taking off and signing up.
Was that when Space Jam came out?
Space Jam. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
So you had the new Batman, or you had Batman movies being made. It was a good time for Warner Brothers.
It was a good time for WB.
Yeah.
There we go.
Disney was kind of winding down some of their stuff at some point.
Yeah. All right. So our first upset, Animaniacs, the 14 seed, taking out Scooby-Doo, Mystery Inc. I'm going to just say, Jay, it's your bad taste. What can we say?
No.
All right. Well, here we go. I think this. I'm curious, but I think this one will be a pretty easy one. The number 4 seed is Looney Tunes, and we kind of, this one was tough because it's mainly shorts that were collected through a number of different shows, so we just kept it as Looney Tunes. And like I said, there were a number of different shows over the years that featured them, but the shorts go back to movie theater era, really. But they were a constant fixture on home television sets since the 60s. So we have Looney Tunes at the 4th spot, going up against Disney's Recess at number 13. This is a late 90, early 2000 cartoon featuring, I believe they were 4th graders at a school. And had a very Hogan's Heroes, The Great Escape type vibe going for it. Jason, did you watch Recess, or is this slam dunk Looney Tunes for you?
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a murder round. I mean, I have a Peter Roadrunner and a Wile E. Coyote in my Kiro cabinet, so that's where we're going with this.
Yeah. Jay, how about you?
I think Recess was a really well-written series, good characters, good little stories that they had for sure. But you can't pass up Bugs Bunny singing "Ride of the Valkyries."
Oh, the opera episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. There's just something, I know that they've changed Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam's
No more
main
guns.
kind of point of being there, but there was just
He's
something.
no longer a Southern Confederate plantation owner.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was just something fun and I guess naive in some of their humor.
Yeah.
Naive on maybe the watcher's part, maybe, because some of that stuff was it was interesting. But I mean, I love, Foghorn Leghorn, Bugs Bunny, all these characters that were, the Coyote and Roadrunner. I mean, all these characters were just wonderful, and they resonate and they stick through time. I mean, you can still watch the originals and just enjoy them for what they are. So yeah, for sure, Looney Tunes.
I mean, what was Wile E. Coyote going to build this weekend? It backfire on him.
Yeah, I love Recess. That was one of my favorite cartoons of the early 2000s. It was funny. It was smart. It referenced. It was one of the first cartoons really to kind of sneakily do homages and references to other things. I mentioned before the Great Escape and Hogan's Hero type format, which I love. But this is Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes could have very, very easily been the number one seed in this bracket, and I think it probably wasn't, just because a lot of people didn't think of it when they're thinking of cartoons.
Right.
They didn't think of shorts. They were thinking 30-minute type things. But
Sure.
You could take just Bugs Bunny, and he could have probably carried the number one seed, or Daffy Duck, or Foghorn Leghorn, or Roadrunner, or Speedy Gonzales, or Porky Pig, or I mean, it just goes on and on. Tweety and Sylvester.
Right.
I mean, they're a juggernaut. I mean, they're a cornerstone of cartoons, and something that I think a lot of people have tried to replicate, but no one ever quite has done what Looney Tunes was. And part of it was the irreverence. Part of it was, frankly, the edginess of those cartoons. It seems so quaint to us now, but when they came out, man, these were shorts played in front of rated R movies. I mean, they were not meant for the faint of heart when they came out.
No, in fact, they were, I think, one of the first cartoons to get like mom and parent group and church groups like saying they were, oh, this is violence, it's too violent for kids, and yada yada yada.
Yeah, I mean, if we're all honest, some of our first encounters with sex of any kind, of even a boyfriend girlfriend, that it came through Bugs Bunny cross dressing.
I was about to interrupt you and say Bugs Bunny cross dressing.
Exactly, but that was our early thoughts. Oh, boys like girls, and Bugs Bunny dresses up like a girl to fool Elmer Fudd.
Yeah.
And what's the skunk's name? I just had a blank. Yeah.
Pepe Le Pew is after the cat.
Right. It's very, in our modern world that we live in now, it's uber creepy. It's like, oh boy.
Well, that's what I mean about some of the
stalker.
naive humor of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say that we wouldn't have got something like Animaniacs
No.
if it were the Looney Tunes kind of format.
Oh no, absolutely.
Yep. And so and we mentioned Tiny Toons, which didn't make the list, but I think that was largely an attempt. Yeah, Tiny Toons. How did that one not make it? But that was the sanitization of Looney Tunes. Even like Space Jam, it was making it more palatable. Even back in the 90s, for modern times, as antiquated as the 90s see now, even back then there was that move to get away from some of that misogyny, some of that violence, some of those things that were racist, like with Foghorn Leghorn or anything like that. So, yeah, Looney Tunes. Moving on. Sorry, Recess, but that's how it goes. All right.
Yeah, I think that's why Flintstones kind of suffered a little bit, because just the misogyny in it.
It's
Same with the Jetsons. I think the Jetsons falls under that same part of its era.
Yeah, and it's hard when we talk about things in the past, and it's hard to judge something
Right.
by modern times and modern sensibilities, right or wrong. Not saying that it was right thinking in the past, but that was the predominant thinking, the way things were, and thankfully we're changing. You know, that we are maybe slowly being beaten into evolving as a society. So
Yeah.
You have to apply that period's principles to its product.
Right.
Otherwise, you're kind of skewing things. And like, I'm not agreeing with the misogyny, and I don't want to get in a whole philosophical debate, especially with everything going on right now.
Exactly.
But it is.
It's not-
You know,
yeah, it's
like I
not
said,
to
watching Peter Pan, and I realized that the Native Americans on it were
right.
painted red. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that is not cool. And never occurred, and this is horrible of me, but it never occurred to me until recent events. And I'm sitting there watching it going, oh my God, why did I never realize this?
Yeah, that's why I think beyond cartoons, any movie, any TV show from the 80s, watching it through today's lenses is very difficult. And there's part of me that's like, oh, it's bad, and it is bad.
Mm-hmm.
But there's part of me that says, you know, at least I've grown enough to realize, man, that was really crappy. The way they wrote that, the things that we thought were funny. I mean, you go watch something like The Naked Gun now, and it's a hard watch. Or National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yeah.
Tough. But
Well,
anyway.
there's been some the early episodes of MASH with the Black Doctor.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna say his name.
Anyways, to put a pin in that,
Go on.
let's keep moving here. Next matchup, number 5, Tailspin, another entry in the Disney Afternoon category, featuring the Jungle Book characters in a, I don't know what would you call that. It's not really retro future, but that was definitely a style with that the seaplanes, airplanes, and the blimps.
Well,
I guess
they kind of did what Batman the Animated Series did. They made a kind of a time frame of their own doing.
Yeah,
They took elements of different kind of times and just kind of ran with it.
Yeah, and that's going to go up against. This is one I'm surprised made the list, but it was on a number of different lists. Freakazoid, if you remember Freakazoid from the 90s, kind of a zany, wacky.
Faintly, I remember the name.
Yeah.
I actually don't even remember like what it looks like or anything.
It was one of those Warner Brothers cartoons that came out about the same time as Animaniacs and Batman and those type of things. It was somewhere between Deadpool and The Mask type of thing.
Yeah.
It just was a crazy zany thing.
Didn't they, not too long ago, could have been maybe 5 years by now, like I said, time has no meaning. Didn't they release a Freakazoid action figure in one of the DC lines?
Possibly.
I thought they did. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Maybe. I should know this, but I don't know. It sounds like it'd be something as a San Diego Comic-Con type thing, maybe, or
Could be.
if anyone knows, post it up.
Yeah.
So,
I really don't see this much of a contest myself. I love Tailspin. I watched a few episodes of Freakazoid, and it didn't stick with me. I get the fun of it. Like I said, it was very spastic, very boisterous kind of a thing. But yeah, that's exactly where I would have put it, Travis, is in between a Mask-like character and a Deadpool-like character. I could be wrong on this, but I just, it didn't set with me. Whereas Tailspin, I loved all the characters. I loved the stories, and I was just amused by it all. So it's hands down for me, Tailspin, by far.
yeah. How about you, Jason?
Oh, Tailspin was, of those Disney cartoons, it wasn't DuckTales that was my favorite. It was actually Tailspin. And even to this, as an adult, I still fantasize of owning that airplane that Blue had. That airplane was...
Yeah, that was what, the Sea Duck? Is that what that was called?
Yeah, but it was modeled after the Catalina, which is an amazing seaplane. So...
Yeah, we're going to go quick through this. I agree, Tailspin. Freakazoid, I get some people, it probably like my sister's age, who was about 5 years younger than me, probably hit a lot harder. I was in college by the time that came out, so it had virtually zero resonance with me at that point. But Tailspin, I mean, just the theme song. I mean, it's buzzing through my head right now as we're talking about it. I mean, Shere
They
Khan
had
is
some of the best villains too.
Shere Khan is the overall bad guy, and then who doesn't love
Carnage.
Carnage? Yeah, it's it's great, and it was so fun seeing him pop up on the new DuckTales cartoon. That, yeah, I don't think we need to talk about that one anymore. It's Tailspin.
Nope.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. This is a big one that I'm surprised it didn't land a little higher. At number 6 is Smurfs, which is kind of representative. Really, one of the only I remember Smurfs primarily as a Saturday morning cartoon,
Right.
part of the ABC or NBC block during the mornings, but it was on for at least a decade, every Saturday morning, and kind of just a classic. And it's going up against the number 11, another classic, Rocky and Bullwinkle. This, I think, is an interesting matchup because it is two what we would consider classic, even though Rocky and Bullwinkle predates Smurfs by quite a bit. Jay, where do you fall on Smurfs versus Rocky and Bullwinkle?
Personally, I like the Smurfs better, but I think I like the characterizations in Rocky and Bullwinkle a little bit better.
Okay, so that's not an answer.
Okay. So I guess the right choice on this one, I think, would be Rocky and Bullwinkle.
All right, Jason.
What year Rocky and Bullwinkle come out? 40s or 30s?
No, it'd be 60s.
Yeah.
60s?
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, man, I can't. Toss up. The Smurfs. It's even matched.
All right, well then I'll break it up, and I'm going Rocky and Bullwinkle on this one. Smurfs are great. I don't underestimate. I remember getting the little figurines from Hardee's.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you remember that? My dad, he was a maintenance mechanic all my life growing up in factories. He had California raisins and Smurf figurines glued up on the inside of his toolbox. When he opened the lid, they're all lined up there. I remember the collectible glasses you used to get at like Hardee's and Burger King and places like that. Still got a collection of Smurfs ones. So there's a special place in my heart. But Rocky and Bullwinkle, just for Moose and Squirrel, is fantastic. It was irreverent. It was funny. It was well written. The animation wasn't the greatest, but it was highly stylized. I mean, it was when you saw a Rocky and Bullwinkle, you knew exactly what it was. There was no mistaking it was Rocky and Bullwinkle. And I can't say that I'm not sure I would sit down today and watch a bunch of them, but if it was on TV and my dad was sitting there, I'd be there right with him, just laughing at it with him. And for me, a lot of it comes from my dad's love of Rocky and Bullwinkle. He loved Rocky and Bullwinkle. And so, and this one, I think it's a minor upset, but Rocky and Bullwinkle is the way to go. Okay. Moving on here, as we're the last couple matchups of the round, we have the Hanna-Barbera Laugh Olympics. If you remember, it was a combination of many different Hanna-Barbera cartoons in a Olympic-style format, very similar to Wacky Racers, which I'm kind of surprised Laugh Olympics made it over Wacky Racers. And I say that because I'm probably the guy that rated Laugh Olympics the highest on any of the lists. So maybe I'm not so surprised, but Laugh Olympics is going up against another of the Disney afternoon. I don't know, was there 5 or 6 different cartoons that came out? But and this is a very tough one for me because Rescue Rangers was my favorite of the Disney afternoon cartoons, and so we have Laugh Olympics versus Rescue Rangers. Jay,
that's not what we have.
Oh, what do you have? Darkwing Duck. Rescue Rangers is next. My bad. So Rescue Rangers as a preview is the next one.
You're fired, Travis.
I know. I'm looking at a different list than the Facebook list here, trying to get it going. But Darkwing Duck. So this one's easier for me now. And just to spoil it, I'm going Laugh Olympics on here because I love Snagglepuss and Grape Ape and Speed Buggy and Jabberjaw and all that crew. I like Darkwing Duck, not more than I do the Hanna-Barbera crew. Jason, what do you think?
Here's a secret. Among things that I haven't watched, Darkwing Duck.
Are you serious?
All right, so listeners, we'll be
But
looking
Laugh
for-
Olympics. I mean,
Placement,
even if I had
very
probably watched it,
important.
I'd say Laugh Olympics because the second you said Jabberjaw, I was like, oh, Jabberjaw, great. Like, yeah, no, we're now. I
You
want a
guys
great
are
t-shirt,
terrible.
Jabberjaw t-shirt. So
Yeah, Jabberjaw was a fun one, and yeah, because he had like Jabberjaw and Speed Buggy, and man, there
we
were
had
all those.
Speed Buggy who had the not Shaggy.
Yeah, Josie and the Pussycats.
Yep.
But yeah, Jay, you're getting kind of teamed up here, man.
Jason can't call himself a Disney fan anymore. I'm sorry. That's just bull. This series absolutely made fun of Batman. Absolutely made fun of Batman, but at the same time was able to carry a serious cartoon, and was just a blast to watch. You guys suck. You guys knocked out two of my favorites.
My
Mr. Yank
bank
and
account
Darkwing.
says otherwise about being a Disney fan.
That's terrible.
I'm sorry, man. I don't think Laugh Olympics will make it through the next round, but we'll see. Our final matchup, the 8-9 seed here, we have this one was very hard to categorize and where to put it. Somehow it ended up in the after-school program, the after-school bracket. The Tick, which could have very easily fallen in the action hour and probably could have had a case for the primetime spot too, as it was supposed to skew a little older, but I think kids really loved the Tick when it came out. It was a weird one on the Fox animation block that was after school back in the 90s, and it's up against Rescue Rangers. And so I have a personal conflict here because these are two of my all-time favorite cartoons. So I'll let you guys try to convince me one way or the other. Jay.
Oh, man, I don't know.
It's kind of painful to see these two go against each other this early.
Yeah.
Because Patrick Warburton did the Tick's voice, and the guy that does a live action version that's currently on Amazon. Really? It's just like
I
another
don't know if I can
toss-up.
do
It's
this
like
one or not.
I just pick one to pick one because I can't decide to be like say, oh, this was better than the other.
Right. I'm sitting here. Both of these would have at least made my top 8 of all time, and there might have been an argument for these both to make my final 4. So to have them meet in the first round is rough. I love the Tick. It is my sense of humor and sensibility and everything. Right to it's so absurd. It's so ridiculous. I mean, it has Batman in the cartoon,
Right?
an American Maid, and the sewer urchin, and the bad guys like Chairface Chippendale who carves his into the movie. I love it so much. But then we have Chippendale, Rescue Rangers, which for my money is the best of the Disney theme songs. Is Chip 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 and Dale, Rescue Rangers.
Who doesn't love Chip
Yeah,
and Dale? They're
Monterey
very
Jack.
endearing characters. Even the old versions prior to the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers are very endearing. So, like I said, this one is very painful to pick.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think if I'm going to start, I do this because there's so much Disney representation. I'm going to the Tick, just because it's different. There was nothing like it, and it's a cartoon that I could sit and watch the entire series front to back in an afternoon if it was on today.
I think I'm going with Tick too, honestly.
Oh.
It hurts. It hurts to do that. Because I love the whole Rescue Rangers gang. They're a great bunch of characters, but man, I can just sit and laugh at the Tick all day.
Yeah. Well, Jason, Tick's going on, but why don't you give your opinion?
I I'll just go with you guys just to pick one.
Way to be Switzerland, Jason.
That's right. He is Switzerland.
Right.
Okay. We're going to try to get round 2 in this bracket done here quickly, and we're going to get down to our final 4 in this bracket. We've talked a lot about these cartoons, so it'll pretty much be a quick yay or nay. And so we're going to start off with the 1 versus 8 bracket. Is the original 80s DuckTales versus the one we just talked about, The Tick. Jay, what do you think?
DuckTales.
Jason.
DuckTales versus The Tick.
Yeah, original DuckTales, 90s versus The Tick.
Yeah, probably DuckTales.
I'll go Tick, even mostly because I know DuckTales is going on, but The Tick is that high up for me. I love The Tick, but DuckTales, number 1 seed, moves on. Okay, our number 2 matchup here, we have Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Versus Laugh Olympics. So Scooby-Doo essentially going up against himself in this round. Jay, what's your pick?
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo, and I will go, as much as I like Laugh Olympics, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Next, our upset, the Animaniacs from the 14 slot.
Boo.
Taking on... Oh, I lost it here.
Is it Rocky?
Rocky and Bullwinkle, thank you. So this is a matchup of 2 upsets, the 11 seed versus the 14 seed. Rocky and Bullwinkle versus Animaniacs. Jay.
Between those 2, for sure, it's got to be Animaniacs.
Yeah, Pinky and the Brain just took over the world.
Yeah, I'm with you. Animaniacs right there. Animaniacs coming from the 14th slot, winning another round. And our final matchup then is going to be Tailspin versus Looney Tunes.
This is a painful one.
Yeah, Jay, we knocked 2 of your favorites out, but even if we didn't knock those out, you'd have these 4 to go up against each other. Looney Tunes, which I think was your number 1 overall seed, wasn't it?
I think so.
I think that was your top pick. Looney Tunes, Tailspin. Where are you going?
Oh, man. That hurts. Man. Come back to me if you would. Let me think about it. I really got to think about this.
Jason, just so we're clear, I'm going opposite of whatever you pick, so we make Jay pick this round. So go ahead and take your pick, Jason.
I'm a chicken hawk.
Now, listen here, boy. So we got 1 for Looney Tunes. Just to put Jay in anguish, I'm going to take, what was the other one? Tailspin. Mostly because I like King Louie's Bar. He may be the best ancillary character of all the Disney shows. So, Jay, it's back to you. We got 1 vote Looney Tunes, 1 vote Tailspin.
Man, this hurts. I really got to go with Looney Tunes just for the diversity of characters.
Oh, I just want to make clear that you knocked Tailspin out yourself here.
I know.
Oh, all right. So coming up later after we do our next 3 brackets, the final 4 in the after-school brackets comes out as the 1990s DuckTales. Will go up against Looney Tunes, and that's a slobber knocker if I've ever heard of it. That's a tough one. And then we have our number 2 seed, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Going up against the surprise 14 seed coming up, Animaniacs. So we have a lot of good ones to decide on there. But
we definitely want your guys' opinions on these last 2 battles, because I don't want to have to make another decision like that. I really need some help. So
I think Jay could pick which child he loves more easier than he could have Tailspin.
That was painful.
So anyways, yeah, let us know. We have, once again, 1990s DuckTales going up against Looney Tunes, and Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Up against Animaniacs. Let us know in the comments. Let's finish this episode out. Let's something that didn't suck this week. Things are. It's 2020. That's going to be a phrase we say the rest of our lives. It's 2020. Jay, what's something that was good for you this week?
Lots of volleyball this week. Actually, last 2 weeks. So I'm. It's nice to get in the sand, nice to get in the sun again. But I did find this. It is Sun King. They're a local brewery here. It's orange vanilla sunlight cream ale, and that is some good stuff, especially when it's hot out.
Jason, something that didn't suck for you this week.
Like a good week to ask that question. We're just coming off the loss for oldest dog, so not quite there yet for a good week or something that doesn't suck yet. Sorry
Well,
about that news.
Yeah, sorry. Hopefully you have good memory. For me, I found some new toys this week, which sounds terrible compared to Jason's what they've been going through, but it was fun to get a little normalcy. So I did manage to find the retro Ghostbusters. I finally got all 4 of those. Found Egon just yesterday, and those are real fun. Those are toys I always wanted as a kid, never did, and the prices on the secondary market were so high, I never get it. And then I managed to find Morph from the Age of Apocalypse wave for Marvel Legends, which is very fun, as I love the Exiles run of the Marvel comic, and so Morph was a huge part of that. So little plastic therapy for me this week. But Jay, get us out of here today.
I have a quick question on the real Ghostbusters figures before we move
Yes.
on. Maybe other people might be interested in this.
Sure.
Are those new release figures?
Whoa. They are. I can't tell you for sure if they're the old molds or not. I would assume they are, but if they're not, they're done exactly like the old mold.
Or they're either new release or new issue, but they're new figures.
Yeah, they're brand new at Walmart, hanging on the pegs.
Okay.
So yeah, they come with the Ghost. Yeah, the Proton Pack and all that. So yeah, they're fun. I kind of hope they keep going with the line that we could see. I'd love to get some of the vehicles from that line, but who knows whether those molds are still intact or not. But anyways, Jay, take us out of here.
All right, we appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to us go on and on and on about our favorite cartoons. We really want your guys' input on this. We are seeking your guys' support and help and thoughts on these. Obviously, these guys picked some wrong ones. It happens. Don't hold it against them too much, but we appreciate you listening in, and we hope that you get involved with our future brackets, because there are some tough ones coming up, and there's some just great cartoons that are going to go out first round, and you can blame Travis for that. But it's all in good fun. This is just our picks, and unfortunately some of the later matches are that's just how they go. Just like in March Madness, you'll see some goals go out that just shouldn't have, but here they are. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll post the bracket for the next round here shortly, and we definitely want your input. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.